Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of WagmiTV. Have a fun one for you guys today. We're going to talk Solana. We haven't talked Solana in a while, so we have a new upgrade that's more so developer facing that we're going to walk through. So we're going to detail that and then actually get into some price and chart analysis on the back end in TradingView. So we'll give you guys some update on price action, where we could be headed, and then also some more information about this upgrade. But as a quick reminder, this is not financial advice, right? Entertainment purposes only. So with that said, we're going to get right into it, and we will talk through the upgrade first. So really what this is it's a ZK compression that they just pushed live to the mainnet, and the goal is to cut costs by up to 1,000 times for developers. But essentially what this does is it compresses data and aids in the reducing of costs on on-chain transactions and storage for developers. So as they're kind of working through and pushing new PRs and all that, this makes it easier for them to do that with a lower cost. So obviously, the kind of main theory around, especially these, L2s and the viability of them and even the price action of them, obviously here saying, hey, we're going to go to 300. The reason why this is tied to, developer activity is because, price action tends to follow developer activity, right? And so if you can kind of predict, hey, developers are going to come to this L2 at a higher rate, then usually you can say, hey, the price will also follow as well. But that's a little bit of background on the update. We'll go into developer activity and the historical outlook of that with Solana. But Mod, anything else you'd add here?
Yeah, nothing specific. I would just say, for those that aren't familiar, ZK applications are really a type of blockchain app that make it more scalable and private than traditional blockchain applications. So the idea here is you have a ZK compression that lays the groundwork for future ZK compute applications on the Sol network. So to see his point, right, this could make the Solana network more attractive to developers, which then makes it more attractive to users, which of course then kind of funnels into benefiting the price of Solana, generally speaking, right? So we always kind of say follow the money, follow the developers, and that's how you'll get to kind of these higher price points and these utility-based coins that are going to run, like not including kind of the meme coins and things like that. So it's something that we're always tracking. So definitely excited to go into kind of the developer counts and some of the analytics on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points there. And to your point about following the money, following the developers, when we look at the developer chart, this is specifically for Solana, right? It's going to follow, similar to what we saw in the price action, right? We have the 2020 to 2021 bull run here, and it's reflected in the developers. So that's kind of mirroring the price as well. And then obviously we have kind of that 2022 to now present day bear market here, and you see kind of that gully right here in developer activity. Obviously, as there's less opportunity and less people on chain and being active in Solana, it's going to attract less developers, and therefore it follows the price. But now, as we've seen, prices kind of come back, relatively speaking. I think Solana is pretty much 10x since the bottom of the bear market. Now we're looking at higher developer marks, not quite to the level of where we were at the height of the bull run, around 4,000 developers monthly active. But now we're kind of hovering around 3,000 monthly active developers, and then this kind of reflects the kind of higher price we saw in Solana and Bitcoin back in April, and that's kind of the high in developers we hit as well. So it continues to kind of reflect price, and I think obviously this upgrade will be big, but ultimately it'll also depend on how successful Solana is price wise as well going into the rest of the year. Anything else you'd add here, Mata?
Not really. It is interesting to see, Solana got beaten up pretty hard from its all-time high from a price perspective. So it is interesting to see, like, the developers, yes, they did decrease, but they didn't decrease to the amount that, percentage-wise that the price did, right? And I think there's also something to keep in mind is this is pretty new news, right? So this will take a while to leak out to developers, and then folks will eventually pivot. Like, obviously crypto and tech moves very fast, but it still takes some time to actually coax some people and encourage them to come over to Solana. So I think this is kind of the first step in that. So definitely curious to do an update on this, a week, a month from now, whatever the case may be, so that we can kind of see what the change in developers looks like from that perspective. But yeah, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, right? Because we had Solana at the top of the bull, trading in the 200s, and then dropping down to, 10, 12, $13. And here we almost, we all saw more of like a 50% decrease in the total monthly active developers, not even close to, the 20th cut that the price got from the top of the bull run. So I think it's great to see, hey, developers aren't falling back down to pre-bull run levels, 2020 bull run levels where we had just a handful of developers. A lot actually stuck around and didn't leave the platform heading into the bear. So, we'd almost expect this to go back above 4,000 and then trough again in the next bear market. I think that's a great call out on that front. But I think that does it from the developer side. And talking about the update, I think we're going to kick it over to you, Mata, to run through some of the charts and what we're seeing in terms of price action and setups on the Solana side.
Yeah, happy to take it over. Not a whole ton that we're seeing on this front, but just to kind of give a little bit of color, right? You kind of saw throughout the bull run, we obviously had the peak of developers, and then you kind of saw it almost like stall out about halfway. I think it was around 2,500 developers. But from a price perspective, right, we dropped high to low 96%, which is absolutely insane. But it's a testament to Solana as a whole that folks actually stuck around, continued to innovate, continued to develop on the platform, even throughout all of this kind of sideways chop that we see. Obviously had a massive run that's almost kind of created this, what I would assume is basically a bull flag here, is what I'm kind of thinking. But I mean, we made 900-ish% gain from some of these lows back in October of last year. But really similar to Bitcoin, we're kind of seeing it in this little range here. What I would think to be a little bit of a bull flag. We've really been defending kind of this 119 or 118 to 122-ish level very, very hard. The only time it really dropped below that significantly was on that day in August where everything kind of dropped. Obviously saw massive recoveries the next day after all the Japan news, the Hang Seng news, all that stuff going on. But really from here, what we're seeing from a long-term perspective is really just consolidation, right? So to stay bullish on Solana, right, you're going to want to keep above kind of this range on a closing basis, right? We want to make sure we're not actually closing any candles below this and then confirming below it, because then that means we're probably headed downward. We have hit it plenty of times. So to stay bullish on this, I really want to see this make a nice move up towards this upward trend line, right? That's going to be a pretty solid resistance for us. So the more developers that come in potentially in a couple weeks, maybe we see some sort of small, double bottom or something like that to send us back up. It's, again, going to depend a lot on the market itself. Some other things that we can see here, this is the 50 and 200 day moving average. So what's really interesting is the 50 actually just crossed over the 200, which typically that is what they call a death cross. So I think just be wary from a, specifically chart and TA perspective, that is typically what they call a death cross, which typically means a breakdown. We have hit this support level multiple times. I know I've kind of talked about it in the past. It's kind of like breaking down a door, right? The first time you hit it, it's going to be pretty difficult. The second time, it's going to get a little weaker, third, fourth, fifth. So by this point, it's a pretty, I would say, kind of loose support level. Even though it's going to be strong, it's hit there a couple times. This would be, the probabilities would start to be leaning towards kind of a breakdown from this scenario. So to stay bullish on this, we want to make sure that we don't break down from kind of this little range here. We want to start making some really awesome moves up towards this kind of upper or downward trend line you see here. If it breaks out of that, you're going to, of course, have some of these pieces from the last bull run that'll be light resistances. But really, your upside is looking, oddly enough, right around that $300 mark that they were talking about in that article itself, right? So full-time upside, we're talking weeks ahead, could be very high for something like this. So again, going to depend on Bitcoin, going to depend on the broader market. We just heard there's 50 basis point cut today. Didn't see a whole ton of movement on the crypto side, but just keep a watch on just the crypto market as a whole, and that'll kind of give you guidance into where Solana is going to go from here. But if you're long-term in Solana, this is really bullish for you, knowing that more developers are likely going to come to the system. It's going to encourage development, going to encourage innovation. So from a fundamental perspective, Solana looks great. it might just be subject to kind of the woes of bear markets and crypto and whatever happens from the broader economy.
Yeah. I think it's a great breakdown. So, covered key levels there, right? We want to stay within that 119 to 120 range to not invalidate and go lower than that. I think that's great. And then I think you're totally right. From a fundamental perspective, still really solid. I think there's going to continually be updates to Solana. So, still has the potential to really compete with ETH, especially as they kind of are a little bit slower to get some of those updates out. So, awesome. I think that does it for us today. Let us know what you guys think. Are you guys long-term bullish on Solana? Have you kind of, transitioned out of L2s? Are you looking more just towards hodling Bitcoin? Kind of where do you stand? We'd always love to hear that. And like, comment, subscribe if you got value out of it. So until next week, WagMe.